Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question was suggested by a viewer, thanks to Kevin Burrell for this one. Nick activates Tormod's Crypt, targeting Amy, while Amy controls Tormod the Desecrator and has 2 lightning bolts in her graveyard. How many triggers does Amy get? Okay, so to answer this question, we're going to need to know a little bit about how triggered abilities work. You might already know that anytime something happens in the game, the magic fairies that are in charge of triggered abilities are going to see if that matches the trigger condition of any applicable triggered abilities, and if so, they'll write that triggered ability on the whiteboard. Another thing that's important to know here is exactly how they do that. Anytime they're taking a look to see if any triggered abilities trigger, they also need to evaluate how many times that ability has triggered, which, as we're seeing in this question here, is not always a trivial task. So, how many times did Tormod trigger? To get the answer to this, we're going to need to examine closely what its trigger condition says. Notice that Tormod's ability says it triggers whenever 1 or more cards leaves your graveyard. So that would mean that it triggers if 1 card leaves your graveyard, or if more than 1 card leaves your graveyard. Either way, both of those would constitute a single trigger event. So with that being the case, we can see that the Tormod's Crypt, which caused both of the lightning bolts to be exiled as part of a single game event, is only going to cause 1 trigger from Tormod's ability. Now let's contrast that with another card which has a very similar trigger condition, Murktide Regent. So with this card, we can see that it triggers whenever an instant or sorcery card leaves your graveyard. So with this being the case, we can see that the first lightning bolt is an instant that left your graveyard, and the second lightning bolt is another instant or sorcery that left your graveyard. And so with that being the case, this one is going to trigger 2 times. Notice that the ability does not have wording, like Tormod's did, that indicates that these 2 leaving the graveyard at the same time should both be considered part of the same trigger event. So, with that being the case, you are going to get 2 +1/+1 counters on Murktide Regent if this event happens to you. And that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again tomorrow for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.